Hello, parents and guardians. How are you guys today? I hope everything is going well. I mean, because I said, "How are you?" and you can't respond back. But so today, I really want to talk about something that I got a chance to explore, and I think will be a really good avenue as parents to also be involved in this. So recently, um, I was on Twitter, and I found the resource that we can use to try to find different ways to implement different things into the classroom so that our students um, are in environments where they feel included and environments where they feel able to express themselves and mold themselves within our communities. And so, one resource that I found recently was this thing called PSTPLN. And so this is basically a chat a hashtag that we created on Twitter. And basically, with this hashtag is that we prompt ourselves by asking different questions per day throughout the whole week, Monday through Friday, and we try to see what do we look for when we think about different strategies as far as education, as far as ways, like what do we look for in the future in our classrooms, or ways that we're going to implement things within our classrooms. And so I really, really, really enjoyed this because it gave me a chance to talk to many different people from around the world about ways that I can, change things in my classroom setting. And so one of the biggest things that we focus on is the best way to meet the learning needs of every student. And so, for me personally, the best ways to meet the learning needs for every student is to make sure we build an inclusive environment and that we make students feel comfortable and vulnerable to learn. And so, when I thought about some key principles and ways that we could help this process, there were many, many, many different things that I came up with. So one in particular is one of the biggest things is that you have to exempt all assumptions. And so one of the biggest things as teachers is that we don't know students' backgrounds, we don't know where they came from, we don't know what they've been through, we don't know their experiences. And so being able to separate that from what we need a student to actually, what we want or we need a student to actually be, and allow them to once again mold themselves within our environment to become creative or become accessible to other students in ways of showing their true identities, it makes the learning experience way easier. And so, also for me too, is being sure that when you are presenting things or when you're introducing new topics, that the model that you're presenting is represented and reflects every race and culture. Because the good thing, one of the biggest things that I've noticed growing up in predominantly white schools is that there wasn't a lot of resources that I saw myself in. And so the books that we read, there was always white characters, and I felt that there was a certain way of whiteness to be lived as a child, and I felt that because that wasn't displayed in the media or in the books and things that I read, that I felt that black people weren't capable enough to do that, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's something that I definitely think uh, if we want to create a very diverse and inclusive environment, that we should be doing this for our students. Um, I think it's also very essential to acknowledge and provide resources for students with disabilities. Disabilities is a really big topic in schools because people do not focus on these topics, and it's a really big problem because students with disabilities, you want to make sure that they don't feel secluded in any way, shape, or form, and so we have to find resources that's accommodating to students, even when we think about technology. Because I think when we think about disabilities, we think about okay, well, let's make handicap ramps for wheelchair people, but it goes beyond that. It goes blind students. It goes students who are deaf, students who may not have ability to touch, students who may be paralyzed. Like we have to think about people, students who may suffer from mental illnesses or mental disabilities. So we have to think about those things as well when we're implementing ideas into the classroom, so that everyone feels included and inclusive, no one feels left out. And finally, um, we have to make sure that we're keeping the students engaged and that they're able to digest the materials. Because one of the biggest things is that giving extra attention to students who may need that extra time could really make or break a student and make or break their success. And so, for me personally, I definitely think that being able to know a student's weaknesses and knows the student's strengths. You know how to make groups where like you're making blended groups with the weak and the strength student. The weak students and the strong students, so that you aren't creating this hierarchy where all the students who are weak are creating the same mistakes because they're regenerating it themselves, and that you're creating this hierarchy that the strong students are better than the students who just may need a little bit more help. And I don't like to use the word weak. I just like to use um, the idea that no child is left behind, and so that they're not weak because they don't understand or because they're struggling. They're weak because there's a disconnect between me and that student. And so now I have to figure out ways to implement new things so that there's no disconnect on my end and on their end, and that we can work cohesively to make sure that they are very, very successful. And so that's definitely one of the biggest things that I took from this conversation. And so just browsing through, we also had another question, and so it was ways to build professional learning networks. And so, as I talked to you about before, we have to get our students to being able to explore these avenues of media so that they can learn how to create their personal digital profiles in professional ways. And so one of the biggest things I think is definitely interacting with threads and with people who share the same and or different outlooks on education. Because the thing is, everyone does not share the same nuanced opinions about school. And so it's important to implement and to experience diversity so that the new teaching styles won't be alarming when you do have a student that may need um, the teaching style that you may think that you shouldn't implement. And so differences are great. I think another thing too is building communication. And so I think that the more that you know about people, the easier it is for them to share their experiences with you. So being able to make friendships and being able to interact with people all over the world, especially with using this avenue, it was really nice to meet people from different parts of the United States to talk about ways to enhance my abilities to make sure that the class um, is welcoming to all learning styles and all people and all, just all around the board in general. And so I definitely think that when we're not using these online avenues, offline avenues is definitely being very engaged in workshops and professional development conferences. It's important because a lot of people aren't tech savvy and a lot of people don't know how to reach these resources or don't know that they're there. But I think one of the biggest things is that being able to share and to hear experiences, even in person, are more impactful and more beneficial because then you can get the full story on how um, ways that it was implemented could help. Because I know like for Twitter, it was really really nice, but the characters were limited, and so if we couldn't put our whole story unless you want to create a whole thread of tweets, which people are going to be bored out by reading after a while because it's so long and they have to keep on and they have to deal with the replies in the middle. But I definitely think that the face to face aspect definitely worked way well, and you know, I think one of the biggest things too is that in one of our questions for the week too, we also talked about problem solving and why problem solving is super important. And why does it play a huge role in K through 12 education? And so people don't understand, but like the way that you address problem solving could definitely help a student and digest conflict and be able to resolve conflict. And it's important throughout their matriculation through life. Students will go through things, and I think that implementing problem solving in the classroom definitely builds character and morality and the understanding of right and wrong. And it creates dignity, it creates integrity, and it does so much stuff for these for these students. It's priceless. And so we also talked about other avenues that we can explore and other resources that we can explore. And so one of the biggest places to find teaching resources that I didn't know until now is Pinterest. And so Pinterest is perfect because they have a lot of creative ideas that can be used to make sure classrooms run smoothly. And so Pinterest is also helpful for future educators because with a lot um, of different things that are being implemented within the classrooms, everyone is not going to have the same style of teaching anymore. Teaching is not as traditional as it used to be. It's a very fluid field to go into because you have so many different things that you can implement within the classroom. And so I think Pinterest is definitely a great way to keep your classroom organized, to keep it decorated very, very well. And I think also too, to find like little things or activities that you can do with your students during the holidays, you can do with your students during like free time, things like that. So it's nice. And so finally, for me, my overall experience with this was to think about what I would look at if I was deciding to switch to a different district. And so, knowing what I know now, I am looking for a district that is willing to support me and my ideas on ways to incorporate a positive learning environment through inclusiveness, acceptance, and universal learning. And this is super, super important because at the end of the day, if you aren't with a district or if you feel like your student or your child isn't at a district where they feel accepted, where they feel that they can express themselves and express their different types of learning styles and learning environments, and where they don't feel that they are, included, it can be a really bad experience for you as a parent and for your child because your child has to deal with this school for the next couple of years. And so I think that as a parent, when you're searching for a district, and even as a teacher, when you're searching for a district, being able to have a district support you and support your decisions and understand that at the end of the day, you want equality for every student. At the end of the day, you want equity because equity and equality are two different things that you want. You want them to have access to the same resources, but you also want them to have the same level of playing field. So that's super important. I think that we also need to touch on the idea of this world is a very fluid world, and that with gender definitely being such a controversial topic, with sexuality being such a controversial topic, with just the way that people choose to express themselves in general as being a very, very controversial topic, even pronouns being a very problematic topic. I think that we need to really put our eyes on those issues and figure out ways that we can protect our students so that they don't have to go through crazy experiences. They don't have to deal with hate or discrimination or any forms of social injustice so that we can make sure that we're providing the appropriate learning environment for them. So, I would like to say thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to this today. And I thought it would be very beneficial so that you can explore these avenues and see what other teachers are planning to implement within the classroom. And if you all are educators, or even if you aren't, responding to some of those tweets and like figuring out ways or picking teachers' brains to see the deeper aspect of these things that they're implementing can definitely make a huge impact on the schools that you pick for your child and for your child as they matriculate throughout the rest of their college experience. I mean, the rest of their high school experience or elementary school experience or even middle school experience and college experience too. So thank you so much once again for taking the time out to watch this. And yeah, have a good day.